nothing's a lock in life. Nothing's guaranteed. I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. All I know is I have to execute what I can today, execute what I can tomorrow, and then make sure that I'm a better version of myself each and every day that I go about.
This is episode number 54 with Neal Maddox. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Julie Fouché, medical student and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring to you information and inspiration from experts and everyday individuals for how to use lifestyle to maximize health. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Hello, and welcome back to Pursuing Health. In this episode, I had the chance to sit down with 6-time CrossFit Games individual competitor Neal Maddox while we were both at the Reebok Athlete Summit earlier this year in the Bahamas. A little bit of background about Neal if you don't know him well yet. He has an extensive background in health and fitness as both an athlete and a coach. He played multiple sports growing up and Division II football at Linfield College, where he also graduated with a degree in exercise science. He had a stint with the San Jose Sabercats and worked as a personal trainer before finally finding CrossFit in 2009. He was quickly drawn to the sport and to the community, and today he's the owner and head coach of CrossFit X-treme Athletics and has competed in the CrossFit Games 6 times. After a year away from competition in 2016 due to injury, this year marks his return in the newly formed 35 to 39-year-old Masters category. With his 40th birthday quickly approaching, he's one of the oldest in this very competitive group, yet he's already made a statement early in the season by finishing 4th in this category in the Open. We discussed everything from the evolution of Neal's CrossFit Games career, dealing with injuries, and his approach to this season, to some of his lesser-known passions, such as training clients with disabilities and animal rights. I think you'll enjoy getting to know more about what makes Neal tick and rooting him on this season in the new Masters category. Before we get started, I have a few updates. First of all, I have a very exciting announcement for you this week. I have been thinking about hosting a training weekend for quite some time now, and you guys have all been asking for it. So with a little bit of time off between medical school and residency in the beginning of July, I finally had an opportunity to make it happen. Now you can join me for a training retreat here in Cleveland, June 9th through 11th. There'll be some training each day, but also we'll be doing yoga, a nutrition workshop, learning open water rowing. We even have a workshop on how to dream and design your ideal life. I'm super excited about being able to spend some time with you in person, and we've been working really hard to make it a very valuable and impactful experience. You can check it out at trainretreat.com. That's trainretreat.com for more info and to reserve your spot for the weekend. A couple of other reminders. If you're enjoying the podcast, please head over to iTunes to subscribe and consider giving it a rating. I'm also always looking for inspiring stories to share. So if you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send your story to me at info@juliefouché.com and I'll select some to share here on future episodes. To check out my online training programs through Beyond the Whiteboard, visit beyondthewhiteboard.com/Julie Fouché. Finally, please remember that although I'm very, very close to graduation from medical school, this podcast is meant to share the experiences of individuals and does not provide medical advice. So with that, let's get started here with episode number 54 of Pursuing Health featuring Neal Maddox. Welcome back to Pursuing Health. I'm here with Neal Maddox.
Hello,
and yes, thank you. We're here at the Reebok Athlete Summit, and I definitely want to talk about competition and also your thoughts on the new Masters category, but I kind of want to talk about some other things first too. Okay. So let's go back. Let's start sort of at the beginning. I know your background before CrossFit was in football. Can you talk a little bit about just sports in general when you were growing up playing football, what that experience was like?
Oh man. A lot of my motivation came from my uncle Carl Monroe.
Okay.
He played for the Niners back in the 80s, won a couple of Super Bowls with him. And when, growing up, seeing that figure and seeing the success and everything that came with it, it kind of motivated me as a kid to want to get involved. And then my older brother really pushed me into doing it and said that I basically had a natural ability for it. And so growing up, I started modeling, myself after what they did. I was young, and I think about 8, 9 years old. I'd do push-ups, sit-ups, squats in my room. I'd record, keep a log of it. And then as I got older and, started, playing flag football, from flag football to PAL, then from PAL to high school, from high school to college, it just seemed to keep compounding on top of each other. And then after I graduated from college, try to pursue the NFL. That was a shortcoming, and then try to do arena football is another thing. That was a shortcoming. Injuries just pretty much set me back and stuff like that. But, it was just, like I said, if it wasn't for the figures that I had in my life, I wouldn't have had that drive to push me forward to where I'm at now. That's
amazing. And what injuries were you dealing with back then? What was?
What injuries don't you get in football? I've dislocated fingers. Some of my fingers don't even straighten out anymore. I broke my back. My senior year, I broke my back, and I was almost paralyzed from the waist down.
Wow.
My L4, L5, where I had hairline fractures on them. So that just wasn't good at all. But, from knee sprains to, from stingers, basically subluxing my brachial plexus. You name it.
You had everything.
It's happened, yeah.
Wow. And so it's amazing then now, as we get into where you're at now, that you've been able to sustain such a high level of training for so long.
Yeah. I contribute a lot of that to, when I was a kid, I didn't know what I was doing. I just did all these push-ups, sit-ups, and all that stuff, but I contribute a lot of that stuff to a lot of the body weight movements that I was doing as a kid, because I had no idea what I was doing, but I did so much of it. And I think I remember I'd log and I'd do anywhere from, I think I started at 100, and then I worked myself up to 200 a night of each one. And then I did that for years. And
you're doing Murph every night, basically.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's why when I went into high school, kids accused me of using steroids because I was so much stronger than everyone else. At the age of 16, I was benching over 400 pounds and squatting over 500 pounds. And they're like, there's no way you should be able to do all that stuff, because I was just so much stronger. But a lot of that I contribute to, a lot of the foundation that I built with the body weight movement that I was doing. But like I said, I had no education at that time. I didn't know what I was doing. I just did it. And then before you knew it, it set the platform to where I'm at now.
So what was that process like of deciding that, okay, my football career is over?
You know what? I came to the realization that football was over because of the simple fact that the years started coming on. You try to do these, open tryouts, these camps, and all that stuff. And when you get rejected so many times, people say never give up on your dream. But I had to start thinking about my daughter. My daughters. I had to start thinking about where I was going to go with my life and what I wanted to do with my career. And then on the side, I was already a personal trainer, so I just chose to step into that field and really work with other people and help to change their lives.
That's amazing. And now you are doing that, to the nth degree with your gym. And so how did you were working as a personal trainer. How did you eventually then work your way into CrossFit and start doing CrossFit?
So when I was going to school, I was working with this gentleman named Kurt Hine, and I did it as an internship, and I worked with kids who had disabilities. And how it led me into the personal training field was basically I had to do this project. I took this internship, and I took people with disabilities, and I try to set up, some type of strength and conditioning protocol for them. But Kurt Hine is a person who I remember, and it brings actually a lot of emotion, because the gentleman was a remarkable gentleman. He was one of the professors, but he had MS, multiple sclerosis. So, I remember seeing him, and he was basically in a cart, and like he couldn't do anything. The only way he can do anything was like he had to use a dial and drive. And so he'd be in his, he'd basically go teach, then he would go home, didn't do anything. And so I remember getting introduced to him and started working with him. And I'd go to his place each and every day, and I'd work with him, and, simple range of motion, mobility stuff. And I'll never forget when I brought him out of his house, and he said he hasn't been to the weight room in years. And I remember just bringing him down to the weight room and just started off with bands and just doing simple things. And then from the weight room would go into the pool. I'd carry them into the pool, work mobility and stuff like that. But right then and there, I knew right then and there that I knew if football wouldn't last, that would be a outside career for me. So that's why when I was still trying to pursue my football career, that's when I got into the personal training aspect.
Okay.
And where am I going with this? I kind of lost the aspect of what the whole question was.
So have you worked since then? Have you worked with any other individuals with disabilities, or has that
you want to know something? I mean, due to the fact that I've been so focused on my gym and trying to compete in the CrossFit Games for the previous years and stuff like that, when you work with people who have disabilities, you have to really, take your time. You have to be very patient. But not only that, you have to really dive into it. And I haven't really worked too much with that. I mean, we have a lady now who's over at our gym who lost part of her arm. So, I mean, she does have a disability to a point, but it wasn't as severe as some of the kids that I was working with before who had Down syndrome or multiple sclerosis or things of that sort. But, I mean, I really haven't really dived into that field as much. I've worked more so with your general population because I'm in the Silicon Valley, so we have a lot of IT people and stuff like that. And so I've done a lot of corrective exercises, stretches, things of that sort with a lot of PT clients of mine and stuff like that. But no, I haven't really worked too much with too many special needs since college.
Okay. And then at what point did you start doing CrossFit, or did you find out about it?
CrossFit, so it's kind of funny how CrossFit got introduced to me. I was still trying to I got the itch late in 2009. I wanted to try to see if I could go and play football again. And I remember a buddy coming over to me and saying, hey, man, there's this thing. I did this workout over at this guy's gym. And believe it or not, it was Jason Khalipa's gym.
Really?
One of my buddies went to Jason Khalipa's gym when he was in Santa Clara way back in the day. I had no idea who Jason Khalipa anybody was. And so he did this workout, and then he's all, man, you have to try this thing called CrossFit. And I'm like, man, I've tried everything. Yeah. What is this? Yeah, whatever. And then he was like, okay, let's do this workout. And it was Linda.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was, 3 bars of death. I mean, and so, I remember doing that workout, and I think it took me, something like around almost close to 20 minutes. And then afterwards, I was hooked. I was like, what the hell is this? So I hopped on the CrossFit site, and I was looking up CrossFit, and then this video of nasty girls pops up, and I'm looking at these girls, and I'm like, oh my, what the hell is this?
What
this
are they
is
doing?
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that right then and there, literally, once I found out about CrossFit, literally 2 weeks later, I was in a seminar. And my first seminar was in Aromas. And believe it or not, Jason Khalipa was interning. And so then I hear, oh, the CrossFit Games champ, this, that. And I'm like, I had no idea that there was even I didn't even know fitness was a sport, because I still was oblivious to everything because I was so new to it. But that's pretty much my intro and how I pretty much got welcomed into CrossFit.
Wow.
I think Pat Barber was filming at the time. Dave Castro, all the OGs were there. Freddie Camacho, all the OGs, Jolie Gentry. All the OGs
amazing.
were there. And
what had you been doing in the meantime between football and then starting CrossFit? So
from football to CrossFit, basically I worked for a Globo gym for many years, and after I quit the Globo gym, I opened up a small garage gym, but it wasn't like a CrossFit gym. It was a garage gym that I did personal training out of. Okay. Because I had a dream to own my own gym, and so I opened up a garage gym, and literally it was really small. I don't even know.
Just you and one
I don't
person.
even know how I got people there. And then I went from training people to doing group training in that little place.
Wow.
But like I said, I still didn't know about CrossFit. So I did this thing called hybrid training that I thought I was coming on to something where I'd do weights and then would mix it in with some running and all this stuff where we just kept going. And then I find out many years later it's CrossFit. But I thought I was on to something because I was getting great results with people. But then, like I said, starting that garage gym, and then, like I said, my buddy introduced me to CrossFit, and then realized that all these boxes are opening up that were very similar to me. And that's when I was like, man, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to transfer over to. But, in 2009, when I did get my CrossFit L1, I didn't even know that there was a CrossFit Games. I had no idea. So
you were just going into it purely for the training and to be able to use it with your clients.
And purely for the training. And then when I went to the level 1, that's when I found out about the little bit of the community, but I still was oblivious to it. I think a few months later was when, I hopped on the site and they're like, oh, we had sectionals and blah, 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 all these players. And I'm like, what? There's fitness? You could do fitness? You could compete on the level. And I had no idea. That's when I chose to volunteer for the 2009 CrossFit Games. I was a judge because I wanted to know more about it. And so, being up front, up close and personal. And like I said, I've told this story many times. I'll never forget, meeting Dave Castro again and Greg Glassman, and I told him, I love this so much. I will be here next year. And mark my word, I was there next year.
Wow. That's how it all started. Yeah. That's amazing. And then you were there, and that was 2010 was your first year.
Yeah, 2010.
And then you've been competing, basically since then, but more recently you've had some injuries that you've dealt with the last couple of years.
So basically, I from 2010 competed, made 6 CrossFit Games, and then finally it got to a point where I just had some injuries that were mounting up that I had to get taken care of. So I had surgery on my foot. There's so many stories about what I had surgery on, what got injured, whatever. After the my 6 CrossFit Games, I had a tear in my adductor that I've been pretty much nursing since, because I want to try to avoid surgery at all costs, but I had to get surgery on my foot. There wasn't no ifs, ands, or buts. So, when you go to bed every night and you're waking up in the middle of the night in pain, I couldn't handle it anymore. And so I had to get surgery on that. And then I was still dealing with the repercussions of the injury that I got from basically in the background warming up. Everyone said, oh, you hurt your hamstring? No, didn't hurt that. Oh, you hurt your ankle? No. It was my adductor that I had a partial tear. And I remember during the games, I was so upset because I had to pull out that they took me in the back and I had an MRI and they saw the tear there. So, the doc, it was a doctor from Boston. I forgot his name, the gentleman, but I think he worked out over at CrossFit New England.
Yes, yeah.
But anyway, he was telling me that, I should pull out and I should be smart and not try to push it. But I couldn't run. I couldn't lift. I had no power in my hips because of that injury. But basically, I just, this past year and a half has, going on, 2 years, whatever, but year and a half, it's been kind of rough, because, when you're used to competing at such a high level for so long and then you just get it taken away from you, it kind of demoralizes you a little bit mentally. And so a lot of it has been really building myself up mentally, and then at the same time healing myself physically, and just really trying to listen to my body and be smart about what I do and how I do it, because I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm getting ready to turn 40. And I try to describe that, as you get older, I try to describe your muscles are like jerky. If you get a fresh piece of jerky, it bends nice and easy. But as it gets older and it dries out a little bit, when you bend it, it kind of snaps. So that's what happens with your muscles a little bit, And so, I've been doing all the little things that I need to do, my range of motion stuff, mobility, all the stuff that I need to do. But it's just a process, and I have to adapt to the fact that I'm a little bit older. I'm not that young athlete, so some of those numbers aren't going to be the same as they used to be. And so a lot of that's the hardest part. Right,
just to get used to that and being okay with it.
Yes.
And knowing, when is too far to push yourself at the expense of injuring yourself,
Yeah, that's the hardest part. And, a lot of these younger athletes who are beasts, who are killing it in CrossFit, it's funny because when I was younger, a few years younger, because I started CrossFit at 30, pretty much, 31. Pretty much the older athletes were like, oh, wait until you get older. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'm like, nah, I'll stay young forever. Now I tell all these young athletes, oh, yeah, you guys are doing all this stuff. You're having fun. Wait until you get older. It changes a little bit. It still keeps you fit. It still keeps you young. It still keeps you strong. But the volume and what you can do, you have to moderate it, and you really have to be smart about what you're doing, because if you aren't, guess what? testosterone levels decrease. When that decrease, healing decreases, and a lot of that stuff has a profound effect on where your body's going to go and what it's going to do.
Right. You only get one body, so it's true. You got a lot of life, long life that you want to be functional. It's easy to overdo it, I think, when you're young and when you can bounce back and recover really quickly.
Yeah, like prime example today at the summit, all those guys, after we did a workout, they're all out there playing football. And I wanted to play football, but then I sat there and I was like, you know what? It probably wouldn't be smart to play because I know how aggressive I am when I'm out there, and I don't know how to go 50%. It's 100% or you don't step on the field. So, I had to check my ego at the door, and I had to say, okay, let them play. And then I went to the gym and just got some, hidden fitness in.
Staying low key.
Yeah.
That's good. So what was that? You mentioned how it was difficult during that time to be able to really pull yourself back when you were dealing with the injuries, but what were some of the things that you did? Like when you'd get really down on yourself, or when you'd feel like, things weren't going your way, or you were frustrated that you couldn't train as much as you used to?
Once I came back, once I had surgery on my foot, I rushed myself back really fast. And when I rushed myself back, I completely forgot that I had this adductor issue, and I re-injured myself, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And it's like, when you get these injuries and these setbacks, you're just like, come on, man, when is this ever going to stop? Is it my time to, just give this up and retire and stop? And part of it was I like to watch a lot of the NFL Network and NFL Life, and I love listening to a lot of the stories of the NFL players and stuff like that. But then, I sat there and I was, watching a lot of these stories, and all of them were talking about retirement and stuff. And I'm sitting there like, maybe I should retire. Maybe I need to just back up, and this is a sign that I need to just step away from everything completely because my body is not responding the way I want it to respond. And so, everybody's all, oh, no, Neal, you're a beast. You could go out there. You could kill it. But, my body has changed. Physically, people say you look great. But internally, when you're moving and you feel joints and stuff like that, it's not just something that I'm bringing up or making up. I do all the little mobility pieces, all the things that I'm supposed to do. But still, to make it to the games and to, I only knew one way. And I was geared to train hard, work my butt off, put in the time, put in the effort, and get the volume in. And when you can't do all that stuff, and as a former games competitor, when you can't get all that volume, you're like, am I going to still be able to compete at that level when I'm not doing everything that I'm supposed to do?
Right.
And so now I just have to be a little bit smarter with it. There's days where I have great training days, and then there's days where I have to back off and I have to use relative intensity. I have to go with my physical and psychological needs. And as long as I get the work done, sometimes it's not 100% that I'm doing it at, but as long as I'm moving and I'm getting fitness in, it's, it's helping to build me mentally, and, I'm just taking it one day at a time.
That's awesome. And where would you say you are now, kind of on the spectrum of healing from the injuries?
You want to know something? Right now, my body feels good. It feels good. I haven't went out and really did a lot of crazy speed work and agility work and all that stuff. That's something I'm slowly building in. I'm going to go out and work with Henshaw a little bit. I'm going to start back next week. Once we leave this beautiful place, I'll be back out there and I'll be on the grind again, and I'll be with Henshaw, but I'll start implementing a lot of that stuff and seeing where I'm at. But I'm going to ramp myself up at a pace that will allow me to stay healthy but not take me 10 steps back where I just feel demoralized and I'm not, where I want to be. Of course, everyone's getting ready for the Open, and in the previous years, I think my last year that I competed, not last year, but the year before, my worst year I've ever competed in the Open, I placed in the top 20 in the world. But I came to the realization that a lot of athletes have gotten a lot better, and trying to be top 10 in the worldwide Open like I used to be is something from a far reach, but I just want to go out there and give my best and do my best, and wherever the chips lay and wherever I place, as long as I know I gave the effort and my heart and soul was in it, I'll be happy with it. That
sounds like a great approach. I think harder done than said for most people, but I think ideally that's how we'd all like to feel, is that we just gave it our all and then be okay with it.
Yep.
So do you have specific plans if you were to qualify as an individual versus now there's this new masters category?
You want to know something? I've accepted the fact that I'm a masters athlete now. You know, I mean, I look at the, you know, last year doing the demo team and I was banged up and injured on that. Oh man, you know, that's part of the, you know, that's part of you know, really driving me nuts, you know, not being able to do stuff and all that stuff. I came to the realization that, you want to know something? I want to leave it to the young guys, you know, there is a difference. Do I think that I have the ability to still qualify, and can I train and get myself there? I've seen what I can do. I've seen the numbers that I could put up and stuff. Do I believe I can do it? Yes. However, you want to know something? I want to see how I compete and how I stack up against guys my age.
Yeah.
I want to know, you know, this Masters division, there's a lot of former Games athletes who are there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, go to mention, if Tommy Hackenbrook wants to get back into it, I mean, Chad McKay, I mean, he's 35, I believe. I mean, Miko Salo, I mean, Chris Spieler, Matt Chan, Pat Burke. I mean, the list. There's a list.
It's going to be amazing to watch. Yeah.
There's a list of athletes, but I told Dave Castro, I'm all, you know, you came out with it 4 years too late.
Right, you're right on the edge.
I was like, I've been, you know, in my mid 30s for a while. I mean, now you're busting it out when these guys are barely turning 35, and I'm getting ready to turn 40. You know, so it's
still
like
competing against the young guys.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, but you know, I'm wanting to work my butt off. You know, I'm wanting to respect the process, because I think sometimes people just try to rush things, but I have to respect that there's a process, and I have to pay my dues in order for me to earn the right to make it to the big show.
It's a lot of wisdom you have, all your years of experience. And then we talked earlier a little bit about just balancing, you know, now you have that sort of as your goal and your priority, and balancing the other things you do, like running your gym. I know you put your heart and soul into the gym, and you are there, you know, do amazing things for your members. How do you balance those roles and decide, you know, how much you need to put into the gym and focus there versus your own training or other things?
You want to know something? I've been blessed to have a beautiful and smart woman come into my life, and really, Tracy, who really has really just like really stepped up and allowed me to take one step back from the gym. I'm still doing all the behind the scenes work and stuff, but it allowed me to take a step back a little bit. She's took on a little bit of my workload in the client sense. I'm still doing all the behind the scenes stuff and all that stuff, but she's, you know, allowed me to, you know, still go out and fulfill my dream. You know, I've always had a dream of, you know, getting on the podium at the CrossFit Games. You know, I've always fell a little short. I've worked my butt off, but fell a little short, and I still have that dream. You know, my dream is to get up there and be able to know that all the hard work and all the years that I put in, that finally I've made it to somewhat of a pinnacle, you know. I mean, it won't stop there once I do accomplish that, but you know, it's just having this person come into my life and you know, really, you know, help bring the best out of me, in the sense of allowing me to, you know, really go to my roots and train the way I need to train, but still be able to work. You know, I'm just blessed, and I have to say a big thank you to her, because she really has been the biggest difference maker in my life.
That's amazing. And she is amazing. I've met her, and
yeah, she is.
She's a wonderful person. So that's great. It's so important just to see, and you know, how having that support and having those people around you who help you to support and reach your own goals and your own dreams. So that's great to see. I'm going to finish with 3 questions I ask everyone on the podcast. So the first one is 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health.
Man, 3 things that I do on a regular basis. Well, in the morning, the thing that I love to do is before I work out and all that stuff, I spend time doing mobility. Something that I do on a daily basis. You know, I stretch on a daily basis. That's just one thing that I really think is a cornerstone, is keeping the functionality.
Yeah.
Because what people don't realize is when you lose that functionality, it is a form of sickness. And when I see people in the gym who are my age or younger and they can't squat and they can't move, they don't realize that they have a form of sickness that is already set into their body, and that's only going to get worse. And so that's one thing that I try to practice on a daily basis. The second thing is I still never lose track of my nutrition. Yes, do I like to eat cookies here and there? Do I like to drink Coca-Cola? And do I like to eat donuts and stuff? Yes. But then in the simple, on the backside of that, what people don't see is that throughout the day, I'm not doing that all day long.
Right.
I may do it at night because I'm not at my calorie limit, but throughout the day, I'm pretty strict with what I eat and how I eat it. Do I add in carbohydrates? Yes, I do. I mean, do I add in some bread and all that stuff? It's some of the stuff that I have to add in. However, a lot of people who do paleo and all that will be like, why are you doing all that? But it works for me.
Yeah, you've done a lot of trial and error and figured out
it
what works.
For me. If I don't have it, what I realize is that I'm very flat. I have no energy, and it just doesn't really it doesn't really push me. And then the last thing that I do on a daily basis is work out. I just every day I'm in the gym doing something. Right. Every single day. I'll put on my little polar pedometer and all that stuff, and make sure that I don't have it right now. I left it at home, believe it or not, but I make sure that I'm getting my steps in because I think it's critical. I mean, if you look back in the day, the average person did 20,000 steps a day, like just on the average, just living their regular life. That's a regular life. And now I have clients who I'm literally I'd have them put on a pedometer who aren't even getting 3,000 steps a day. Wow. And you wonder why society is, why we're sick and why, health is going backwards instead of forward, and obesity is such on a rise and stuff. It's amazing to me, and so the new thing, and I know this is probably a fourth question, the new thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to park my car more and ride my bike more. Oh, I like that. I'm trying to get out and ride my bike. I mean, I have these toys that I have at home that I need to put to use, because when I was in Colombia, not last year, but the year before, I remember on a Sunday, it was with Doug, we went out and I looked on the street and they shut off, it was in Bogota, they shut off this main street, this packed street, and everybody was riding bikes and running. And I sat there and I was like, this is amazing. And they do it every single Sunday. And this is awesome. This is a huge packed community. Wow. But when I saw that, I was just like, wow. And so that's one thing that I'm trying. I mean, my dogs go to the gym every day, so that's why Tracy could take them, and then I could ride my bike. But that's a secret fitness that I'm trying to do, is just park the car, be way more active in the sense of not getting used to Western civilization, in the sense of just being in the comfort of all the luxuries of life. Right. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I noticed I wear a pedometer too, mostly for our health insurance, because we get discounts if we have a certain number of steps. But it is amazing to see, like, there are some days where I'm really active and I'll get like, well over 10,000 steps. And then other days you're sitting at a desk all day or you're studying and it's like, oh my goodness. I've been there. I mean, it's kind of funny because on my active recovery days, I look and, you can't really measure rowing on that, but I look and I'm like, oh man, my step count is really low. But then on days that I'm active, it's like 20,000 is hit, and all of a sudden my thing is all vibrating and all doing all this stuff. But those are little tips that I try to tell people. Is just, you don't necessarily, if you can't make it into the gym, guess what? Go in your office, walk. If you're sitting in your chair at your desk, guess what? Stand up, walk back and forth when you're on a phone conversation. Guess what? That movement is going to create a positive emotion, and that positive emotion is going to carry over into your conversation. Absolutely. And guess what? If you're in sales or anything like that, guess what? You're going to have more energy. You're going to have more power in the sense of being able to close a deal and things of that sort. But I try to tell people, move. I mean, if you move, longevity, life is going to be a lot better, and it's going to be a lot longer. But if you aren't moving as much, guess what? I worked in a hospital. I wasn't a doctor, but I used to go to a hospital. This was back in 2000. 2009, 2010, 2011, Good Samaritan Hospital, and I'd go in there and I'd work with patients in there. And these are people who are bedridden, and I'd take them out of their bed. And like I said, I'd just work simple mobility, simple flexibility tasks. These are people who can't really move.
Right. That's amazing.
But I'd go and I'd stretch them and I'd work. And if they could work their arms, I'd do banded exercises, and I'd find ways to work with them just to keep them moving. And the reason why I did that is because my mom has had tremendous health issues. And I know I keep going on with all this stuff. I'm sorry.
No, this is
great. But my mom has had a lot of health issues, and a lot of the health issues came from the fact that she was a smoker. That's why I can't stand cigarettes.
Right.
Oh man. But you know, my grandmother was a smoker. She died from CPOD, and emphysema. And my grandmother told my mother to stop smoking, but my mom didn't listen, and she kept going. And guess what? She got CPOD and emphysema. And in 2009, they said that she only had a year to live.
Wow.
She's still here. Wow. And I remember her because, is her health complete? Is she 100%? No. But I remember anytime there's issues and she's in the hospital, the biggest thing that I tell her is move. Do not conform to your bed. Move, squat. And I'd give her little tasks. You know, if you're weak today, 10 squats a day. 10 squats a day. You could sit on the chair, stand. Sit on the chair, stand. And it's funny because my mom would be bedridden, and I'd go to the hospital. All of a sudden, she'll jump up, and then all of a sudden, she's like, I'm going to do my squats. You know, I'm going to do, and you know, my whole thing is that, you know, just move. If you move, you can fight off that. You can fight and delay that chronic disease. And you know, I'm just blessed to still have her here, because I know there's a lot of people who've lost their parents and stuff like that, but I'm still blessed that I can have her here, and that she, you know, she's still a strong fighter. That's where I learned how to get my fight and stuff like that. But you know, I'm really blessed to be able to have her here, and that, you know, is squatting, and believe it or not, you know, even though she has those issues and stuff, she can do a good squat. She can get her butt to her heels pretty much, where most people can't.
Yeah, and she's a good coach.
I guess that's where I got my squat from, you know, because, you know, a lot of people can't do that. But like I said, whenever an issue would happen, and she would go up, because in this, sorry, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more. When someone has CPOD and emphysema and stuff like that, their immune system is really down. And if anyone has a common cold, that common cold becomes pneumonia for people like that. And so that's the issue. That's the issue that I'm always fighting with, is that my mom, my sister has some beautiful twins, but they're little kids, and so they get common colds. So when they get colds, they're around my mom gets sick, and there's nothing she can do to fight it off. And then what happens is she can't breathe. There's an episode, she's in the hospital, and when she's in the hospital, it's not a day, it is a week. And you're in a bed, and they don't move you, they just sit you there. And
it's amazing, and how quickly that strength just disappears. And in a hospital, it's hard to get, you know, they try as much as they can with physical therapy, but there's only so much, you know, so many people to come around to work with you. And so that's one of the most sad things, I think, to see, is just people in bed all day. Not even, you know, even you could do exercises in bed, but you know,
have to your legs are a larger muscle group than your arms, and you need those things. You need your legs to stay strong. If you lose that aspect, it just makes life a little bit more tougher in your later years, later years and stuff like that. But you know, like I said, I mean, you know, just getting her to move and getting her to do things and stuff like that. You know, like I said, there's been many times where I went there and I thought I was going to lose her, where she's like pretty much they put her like coma inducer, and she has tubes down her mouth and all that stuff. And I'm like, you know, you sit there and you're like, oh my God, you know.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
That's
but
scary.
Then every time she fights through it, and I guess that's where I get my strength.
Must be.
I get my strength, and I get my will and my fight, you know, to, you know, no matter how hard a workout is for me, I just think about what she's went through, you know, and even when I'm going through a workout and I can't breathe, I could just imagine what she's going through.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow, that's amazing that you have that inspiration, and then that you know, use that to give back and to help other people move when they're in the hospital. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I did that for many years, for a couple of years, and it was, you know, it was a very eye-opening experience, and I met some great people. I got to work with some great people, and people were like, oh, why don't you do it anymore? it's not that I don't want to do it. It's just time commitment and all that stuff with where you prioritize things. My gym has gotten bigger. You know, we want to expand and do a lot of other things. It's just you only have so much time in a day to do things.
Right.
You know?
Right. Speaking of which, my next question is one thing that you think would have an impact on your health, but you just haven't been able to implement it, or you struggle with it.
You know, one thing that I told myself by the age of 40 that I wanted to become a vegetarian. I struggle with the fact of that because of the simple fact that the meat products that I consume help me to keep the muscle mass that I have, and they give me the branched chain aminos that I have. But you know, I'm a big animal activist. I mean, I just think that there's a lot of cruel people out there who really, you know, are cruel to animals and in general. And not only that, our society of how we slaughter animals and all that stuff, it's pretty cruel. You know, I'm a hypocrite because I'm against that stuff, but yet I'm that guy who goes to the meat market and buys the meat and all that stuff. So I'm contributing to it. And so, I mean, that's one thing that I want to be able to do, is be able to find a way to transform myself into a vegetarian, but still be able to get that meat, you know,
get the nutrition that you need.
That I would get from meat and things of that sort, because of the simple fact that when you don't have that stuff, well, at least I've experimented, my strength numbers have went down. A lot of things my muscle masses went down. Things of that sort have happened. So I need to try to find a way, or a way to supplement it, or what. I don't know. I have to dive more into books and study more on it in order for me to really solve that question and really get the true answers that I need to move forward on that. Right.
To be able to find, you know, it's obviously much more complicated to find you have to combine different sources of protein to be able to get everything you need, and definitely makes it more difficult. Another book, if you've ever heard of Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan, I love that book. And he talks a lot more about, it's more about like hunting and gathering and the process. He kind of goes to the root of where the food comes from. But I thought that was really interesting, and just talking about, you know, how eating meat, you know, obviously we were evolved to eat meat, but it was done in more of a humane way, and like the way of the life cycle of the animal, and it's helping to sustain us. And so when I think about that, it makes more sense. But the problem is that most of the meat we have in our society that you buy in the grocery store isn't produced like that. We're not hunting it ourselves. We're not having to work hard for it. So it definitely changes the way everything is done. But not only that, it has so many profound effects on the you know, Mother Earth in general. You know, I mean, I was watching this documentary on HBO, and it was just talking about global warming and all that stuff. And I forgot the name of it, but it started off with this guy dancing in his living room and doing all, and I'm like, this is about global warming and stuff. But, you know, going through the documentary and seeing everything that he experienced and all that stuff, basically there comes to a point where he went and he was with these tribes, and when he was with these tribes in this council, all these people sat in this council, and you know, they didn't sit in chairs. They sat basically out in the wilderness, and they're sitting there and they're talking and they're debating. But when they're talking and debating, they talk and debate with stories. They don't talk and debate like how our political system is. They talk with stories, and these stories are basically these stories are what lead to basically what they want to do with their society and where they want to go. But at the end of it, they all get together and they dance and they bring out the joy of one another. Think about that. If we had politicians, instead of you know, sitting there and yelling at each other, but you know, they talk, and then afterwards they're all you know, gathering around and dancing together and stuff like that. We're you know, there wouldn't be as much hate as we have today. But anyways, going back to that story with global warming, we're producing so much beef today, and that beef that we're producing, that byproduct of these cows taking up so much of our lands and stuff like that, and then the gases that they release and stuff, you know, it's just having a negative effect on what's going forward with Mother Earth. So. Yeah. Okay, my last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you? Wow. I mean, you know, just
Okay, so when I grew up, like I said, I told you about my
Mm-hmm.
uncle playing for the Niners, but I had a dad who was pretty muscular, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so I always had this image of a healthy life was to have muscles, you know. I remember my dad
Yeah.
would flex and I'd hang on his arm and swing. So, to me, it was just to, a healthy life was to treat your body like a temple
Mm-hmm.
and keep it beautiful and strong. And what I mean by that, I'm not just talking about external beauty.
Right.
What I'm talking about is in the internal beauty, and that's what you feed it,
Mm-hmm.
how you treat it, and and what daily things are you doing to keep it improving.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty much
I love that.
my outcome on it.
I love that. Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. And I think it's time for dinner. So
Yeah. Thank
We'll
you.
have to catch
Thank
up
you
again.
for giving me an opportunity to come on and talk
absolutely.
to your
Yeah. We'll
fans.
all be watching you this season. So
Yeah,
rooting for
got a
you.
lot of work though. I mean, one last thing. Everyone says that I'm a lock for whatever. I'm not a lock for anything. I have to put my head down and I have to
Mm-hmm.
work. I know no matter how hard I'm working, I know there's people out there who are working harder, but I know that I have to earn every single I have to earn every single opportunity to be able to be on that stage.
Oh, yeah.
And then once I'm on the stage, I have to earn every opportunity to be able to make that podium.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing's a lock in life. Nothing's guaranteed. I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. All I know is I have to execute what I can today, execute what I can tomorrow, and then make sure that I'm a better version of myself each and every day that I go about my life. So
Amazing. Amazing outlook.
yeah. So,
Awesome. Thank
thanks.
you, Neal.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. I loved catching up with Neal, and it was especially fun to learn about some different sides of him and what's behind his success as an athlete. I know we'll all be cheering for him this CrossFit Games season in the new 35 to 39 Masters category. I also want to remind you about my training retreat, which is happening here in Cleveland, June 9th through 11th. I'm super excited about being able to spend some time with you in person. We'll be training each day, but also featuring yoga sessions, a nutrition workshop, open water rowing, even a workshop on how to dream and design your ideal life. Check it out at trainretreat.com. That's TrainReatreat.com to reserve your spot for the weekend. I hope to see some of you there. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, head to my website, juliefoucher.com, where you can subscribe to my email list. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please email me at info@juliefoucher.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on the podcast in future episodes. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. Also, don't forget you can train with me by visiting beyondthewhiteboard.com/JulieFoucher. I always love hearing your feedback, so please leave comments under this post on my website, juliefoucher.com, and share your thoughts on social media with the hashtag JFHealth. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Pursuing Health.